The aftermath of battle was always worse than the battle itself. Dr. Marcus Hayes had learned this truth over 8 years of working as a civilian field medic in conflict zones across human space and beyond. The fighting was terrible, brutal, chaotic, terrifying. But it ended. The aftermath didn't. It stretched for hours or days, filled with the work of sorting the living from the dead, of trying to save those who could be saved and easing the passing of those who couldn't. The Battle of Thuron's Edge had been particularly brutal. A coalition of pirate forces had ambushed a coalition peacekeeping fleet, and the engagement had sprawled across 3 asteroid fields, leaving debris and bodies scattered across a volume of space that would take weeks to fully search. Marcus's medical shuttle drifted through one of the outer debris fields, his scanners searching for life signs among the wreckage. Most of the survivors had already been evacuated. The main search and rescue operations had been going for hours. But Marcus had volunteered to sweep the outer edges, the areas considered lower priority, because experience had taught him that sometimes the lowest priority zones held people who needed help desperately. His scanner pinged, a faint life sign, barely registering. Could be equipment malfunction, could be dying electronics mimicking biological signatures, but it could also be someone clinging to life in wreckage that everyone else had written off. Marcus maneuvered his shuttle carefully through the debris field, following the signal. It led him to a section of destroyed ship hull that had been blown clear of the main battle area, probably from one of the pirate vessels based on the design, though it was too damaged to be certain. The life sign was coming from inside a partially collapsed compartment. Marcus suited up. The area had no atmosphere, and made his way carefully through the wreckage. His suit lights illuminated twisted metal and scattered equipment, the grim evidence of catastrophic hull breach and explosive decompression. And then he found her, a Velkari woman, severely injured, barely conscious, but unmistakably alive. She was tall, even collapsed against the debris, easily 6 feet, maybe more. Her distinctive Velkari features were sharp and elegant despite obvious pain. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, eyes that glowed faintly amber even dulled by trauma. Her skin had the characteristic faint, iridescent quality of her species, though it was hard to see clearly through the blood and burns. She wore damaged armor that might have been military grade, but it was too destroyed to identify clearly. Energy weapon burns across her torso, a deep blade wound on her left side that was still bleeding sluggishly, signs of blunt force trauma that suggested she'd been thrown against solid surfaces multiple times. She should be dead. Most beings would be with injuries this severe, but she was conscious, tracking his approach with eyes that showed pain but also wariness and calculation. "I'm a medic," Marcus said over his suit's external speakers, keeping his movements slow and visible. "Coalition civilian contractor. I'm going to help you if you'll let me." The woman didn't respond verbally, but she didn't resist when Marcus approached and began his initial assessment. Her injuries were even worse than they'd looked from a distance. The energy weapon burns had penetrated deep. The blade wound had likely damaged internal organs, and she was probably bleeding internally from the blunt trauma. "You're in bad shape," Marcus said, working quickly to stabilize the worst injuries. "But you're also incredibly tough to still be alive. I'm going to administer pain medication. It's broad spectrum, should work on Velkari physiology. Then I'm going to seal these wounds so we can get you back to my shuttle." He narrated his actions, a habit he'd developed working with trauma patients. Knowing what was happening seemed to help people maintain some sense of control in situations where they'd lost almost everything else. The woman watched him throughout with unsettling intensity, as if assessing threat level or analyzing his every movement. But she allowed the treatment, which Marcus took as consent. "You're lucky to be alive," Marcus said while applying medical gel to the energy weapon burns. "These injuries should have killed you. Your people must have incredible resilience." The woman made a sound that might have been dark amusement. "Resilience. Yes, that is one word for it. Her standard was perfect but accented, her voice rough from pain and what was probably dehydration. "Can you tell me what happened?" Marcus asked while working. "How you ended up out here alone?" "Battle," she said simply. "Lost my ship, survived, barely." "Well, you survived long enough for me to find you," Marcus said. "That's something. Hold still, this next part is going to hurt." He had to set a broken bone in her left arm. The fracture was displaced and needed to be aligned before he could stabilize it. The woman made no sound beyond a sharp intake of breath, her pain tolerance extraordinary, even accounting for the medication he'd administered. "You're handling this remarkably well," Marcus observed. "Military training." "Something like that," the woman said, not quite confirming but not denying either. Marcus got her stabilized enough for transport. "Okay, I need to get you back to my shuttle where I have better equipment. Can you walk if I support you?" "I can try," she said. She couldn't really walk, her injuries were too severe, but she could move with Marcus supporting most of her weight. She was heavy, her Velkari physiology denser than human standard, but Marcus had carried injured people before. They made slow progress back to his shuttle. "I'm Marcus, by the way," he said while navigating through debris. "Doctor. Marcus Hayes, but everyone just calls me Marcus. You got a name?" The woman was quiet for a long moment. "Sira. Just Sira. For now," she said, and something in her tone suggested she wasn't used to being questioned but was allowing it anyway. Back at his shuttle, Marcus got Sira secured in his small medical bay and began more comprehensive treatment. The injuries were severe enough that he needed to keep her under close observation for at least 24 hours before attempting transfer to a proper medical facility. Sira accepted this with stoic patience, lying still while Marcus worked, only occasionally showing signs of pain when he had to manipulate injuries. "You're being incredibly cooperative for someone who was just pulled from wreckage," Marcus observed. "Most people in your situation would be demanding to contact their people, trying to get evacuated to military facilities, asking about compensation or political status. You're just letting me work. I am alive because you chose to search debris others had abandoned," Sira said. "I am hardly in position to make demands, and you seem competent. I trust your treatment more than I would trust many official facilities." "That's either a compliment to me or a disturbing commentary on your experiences with official medical care," Marcus said. "Perhaps both," Sira replied. Over the hours of treatment and monitoring, Marcus fell into his usual pattern of talking to fill the silence. He'd found that trauma patients often benefited from the distraction, and talking helped him process the stress of emergency medicine. He talked about the battle's aftermath, about the challenges of search and rescue in debris fields, about the random absurdity of finding someone alive in wreckage that should have been empty. Sira mostly listened, occasionally asking questions that suggested sharp intelligence beneath the pain and exhaustion. "You are civilian," she observed at one point. "Why do you work in war zones when you could practice medicine safely on your homeworld?" "Someone has to," Marcus said. "And I'm good at emergency medicine. Better to use that skill helping people than doing routine checkups in some comfortable hospital where the most exciting thing is a kid who ate too much Halloween candy." "You could die doing this work," Sira pointed out. "Could die crossing the street on Earth," Marcus countered. "At least this way, if I die, it'll be while doing something that matters, helping people who need it. That seems like a better use of whatever time I've got." Sira studied him with those intense amber eyes. "You are either very brave or very foolish." "Probably both," Marcus admitted with a slight smile. "My ex-wife would emphasize the foolish part." He noticed that Sira didn't ask to contact anyone, didn't request specific medical accommodations beyond what he was already providing, didn't demand special treatment or seem concerned about establishing her identity. "Do you need me to contact anyone?" Marcus asked carefully. "Military command, family, someone who should know you're alive." "No," Sira said firmly. "Not yet. Let them believe I am dead for a time longer. It is safer." Marcus didn't push. He treated enough soldiers to recognize when someone didn't want to be found, at least not immediately. PTSD, concern about discipline for surviving when others didn't, or just needing time before facing whatever came next. "Okay," Marcus said. "Your call, but eventually you'll need to deal with that. For now, let's focus on keeping you alive and healing." "Agreed," Sira said, and closed her eyes to rest while Marcus monitored her vital signs and prepared for the long night of observation ahead. He had no idea that the injured woman he was treating with such casual competence was the most powerful warrior in the Velkhari Empire, or that his simple act of mercy was about to irrevocably change both their lives. 24 hours of observation turned into a request for extended care that Marcus hadn't anticipated. Sira had stabilized well. Her Velkhari physiology was indeed remarkably resilient, healing faster than human standard, though not fast enough to be supernatural. But she still needed time for the more severe injuries to heal properly. "I should transfer you to a coalition medical facility," Marcus said, reviewing her status on the second day. "You need proper care. Xenobiology specialists who know Velkhari physiology better than I do, advanced treatment equipment I don't have in a shuttle designed for field emergency work." "No," Sira said. "No hospitals. No official facilities. You need proper medical care," Marcus argued. "I've stabilized you and the immediate danger has passed, but you need time to heal under observation with equipment better than what I have here." "Then let me heal here," Sira interrupted. "Under your observation. I will pay whatever your standard fees are, doubled if necessary, but I cannot go to official facilities." Marcus sat back, studying his patient. "Are you wanted by someone, running from authorities? Because I need to know if treating you is going to get me arrested or targeted." "I am not evading justice," Sira said carefully. "I am avoiding complications that would arise from my presence becoming known to certain parties. This is political in nature, not criminal." "So you're hiding from your own people," Marcus concluded. "From some of my people," Sira corrected. "There are factions within Velkhari society who would react to my survival in ways that would create significant problems. I need time to recover before dealing with those problems." Marcus recognized the desperation beneath her controlled tone. She was maintaining her dignity, but she was clearly in a vulnerable position that she couldn't easily explain. He should refuse. Taking on a patient for extended care in his small medical shuttle wasn't practical. He had other work to do, other places the coalition needed him. But something about Sira's controlled desperation, about the way she was maintaining her composure despite being completely vulnerable, made him reconsider. "1 week," Marcus said. "You can stay here while you heal. I'll monitor your recovery, provide ongoing treatment, keep you off the official registries. But if complications arise that I can't handle with my equipment, you're going to a hospital whether you like it or not. I'm not letting you die because of political complications I don't understand." "Agreed," Sira said, and the relief in her expression was profound. "Thank you. Your compassion is rare." "It's just basic human decency," Marcus said. "Not exactly rare where I come from. Perhaps not among humans," Sira said quietly, "but rare in my experience nonetheless." Over the following days, Marcus learned more about his mysterious patient. Sira was highly educated. They'd talk during treatment sessions, and she discussed topics ranging from military strategy to philosophy, with the kind of depth that suggested formal training well beyond what most soldiers received. She was intensely curious about human culture. She asked Marcus questions about Earth, about human history, about the differences between human and Velkhari societies. Her questions weren't casual. They were probing, analytical, seeking to understand fundamental differences in worldview. "Why do humans value individual choice so highly?" Sira asked during one conversation. "In Velkhari culture, we emphasize duty and hierarchy. The individual's preferences are secondary to the needs of the collective and the wisdom of those in authority. but humans seem to place individual autonomy above almost everything else. Because we've learned that systems built on forcing people to do things for their own good, or for the collective, tend to become tyrannical, Marcus said. History's full of examples of leaders who claimed they were serving the collective while actually serving their own power. Respecting individual choice is messy and inefficient, but it's safer than trusting authorities to always know what's best. Even when individuals make choices that harm themselves or others, Sira asked. Even then, Marcus confirmed. Because the alternative, someone else making choices for you, is worse in the long run. At least when you make your own mistakes, you learn from them. When someone else makes your choices, you just become dependent on their judgment. Sira was quiet, processing this. Your culture is very different from mine. Yeah, Marcus agreed. But different doesn't mean wrong. Just means we've solved the same problems in different ways. He also noticed that Sira was clearly unused to being cared for. She initially resisted assistance with basic needs, as if accepting help was a weakness, but gradually allowed Marcus to help her as her trust grew. You don't have to do this, Sira said one evening when Marcus was helping her sit up to eat. I can manage on my own. You could manage, Marcus agreed, but you'd be in pain and it would slow your healing. Let me help. That's literally my job. Your job is emergency medicine, Sira said, not serving as my personal attendant. My job is helping people heal, Marcus corrected. That includes making sure they're comfortable and supported during recovery. Stop fighting me on this. Sira relented, but Marcus could see the internal struggle. She was clearly someone accustomed to complete self-sufficiency being forced to accept dependence. You are not afraid of me, Sira observed one evening, her tone thoughtful. Should I be? Marcus asked. Most beings who encounter Velkhari show some degree of wariness, Sira said. My people have reputation for aggression and military prowess, but you treat me as you would any patient. Because you are just another patient, Marcus said. Yeah, you're Velkhari, but that doesn't change the fact that you're a person who needs medical care. I don't let species reputations dictate how I treat individuals. This approach is unusual, Sira said. Maybe, Marcus said, but it seems to be working. You're healing well, you're not trying to kill me, and we're having decent conversations. Seems like treating you like a person instead of a scary alien warrior is the right call. Sira's expression showed something complex: surprise, appreciation, and what might be sadness. Treating me like a person rather than a warrior, she repeated quietly. That is indeed rare in my experience. On the sixth day, everything changed. Marcus's shuttle sensors picked up multiple incoming ships, military configuration, definitely Velkhari based on their signatures. Before he could react, his communications were being hailed with priority override codes. This is Imperial Guard Squadron 7. A stern voice announced in formal Velkhari that Marcus's translator handled. We have detected our missing sovereign in your vessel. You will prepare for immediate boarding and surrender custody of Empress Kael'sera Venkath. Resistance will be met with lethal force. Marcus felt his brain short-circuit. He turned to Sira, to Empress Kael'sera, with shock that must have been visible on his face. Empress, he managed. You're the Velkhari Empress, the Empress. Yes, Sira Kael'sera admitted, her expression showing resignation. I am. I apologize for the deception, but revealing my identity would have created complications I was not prepared to address while recovering from injuries that left me completely vulnerable. Marcus's mind reeled. He'd been treating the most powerful ruler in the Velkhari Empire like a random injured soldier. The woman he'd been casually talking to about human philosophy was the legendary warrior Empres, who'd personally led military campaigns across dozens of systems, whose mere presence was said to turn the tide of entire wars. I need to speak with them, Kael'sera said, pushing herself to a sitting position despite Marcus's automatic medical protest. Or they will destroy your shuttle to prevent my possible captivity by hostile forces. They are protective. She activated Marcus's communication system with the kind of easy authority that suggested she was very accustomed to commanding advanced technology, and spoke in formal Velkhari too rapid and complex for Marcus's translator to handle fully. Whatever she said, it had immediate effect. The threatening tone from the Imperial Guard shifted to relief and formal acknowledgement. Within the hour, Marcus's small civilian medical shuttle was surrounded by an entire Imperial fleet that had apparently been frantically searching for their missing Empress across multiple star systems. And Marcus was about to learn that his simple act of medical care had just activated ancient Velkhari laws, with consequences he couldn't begin to anticipate. The Imperial Guard boarded Marcus's shuttle with the kind of precise military efficiency that made his small medical bay feel impossibly crowded. They were led by an elder Velkhari, whose elaborate armor markings indicated significant rank. "Your Imperial Majesty," he said, dropping to one knee before Kael'sera in a gesture of profound respect. "We have searched for 6 days. The Empire rejoices at your survival." "Rise, HWhen," Kael'sera said, and Marcus heard the shift in her voice, from the thoughtful woman he'd been talking to for a week to the commanding presence of an empress who ruled billions. "My survival is due to this human's intervention. He found me in wreckage when I was near death, treated my injuries, and provided sanctuary during my recovery without requesting payment or seeking advantage." Elder Velkhrin turned to Marcus, his expression showing complex emotions Marcus couldn't quite read. "You treated the Empress, without knowing her identity." "I treated an injured patient," Marcus said, trying to maintain his composure despite being surrounded by alien military personnel who could probably kill him without effort. "I didn't know who she was because she didn't tell me. I just saw someone who needed medical help and provided it." "And yet you saved her life," Velkhrin said. "Preserved the life of our sovereign without requesting reward, without even knowing her identity. This creates significant situation under Velkhari law." "What situation?" Marcus asked warily. Kael'sera spoke before Velkhrin could. "The Kalteva, an ancient law that recognizes individuals who preserve royal life at personal risk without political motive. By treating me when I was vulnerable, without knowing who I was or seeking advantage from my recovery, you have activated a legal framework that binds you to me as sworn guardian." "I just provided medical care," Marcus protested. "That's my job. I help injured people. I didn't know about any ancient laws or bonds." "Nevertheless, the bond is formed," Kael'sera said, and Marcus could see both regret and something else in her expression, something that might have been hope. "The Kalteva does not require conscious intent. It recognizes the act itself, preserving sovereign life through skill and compassion, without expectation of reward or knowledge of the identity you were preserving." She stood, moving with the kind of controlled grace that suggested her injuries were healing but still painful. "Elder Velkhrin, please explain to Marcus what the Kalteva means. He deserves to understand what his compassion has created." Velkhrin nodded. "The Kalteva is one of our oldest laws, dating back millennia to when our empire was first forming. It recognizes that rulers are mortal and vulnerable, and that sometimes survival depends on the mercy of those who have no obligation to provide it. When someone preserves royal life in such circumstances, they are honored as Kalteva guardian bond. This creates both status and obligation," Velkhrin continued. "Status. You are recognized as sworn guardian of the Empress, with legal standing to speak on matters affecting her safety and well-being. You have access to imperial resources, protection of imperial law, and voice in the imperial court." "And the obligations?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew. "You are bound to the Empress's service," Velkhrin said. "Required to place her welfare above your own interests, to defend her life if threatened, to provide counsel when requested. This bond is considered unbreakable. Once formed, it persists until death of either party." Marcus felt the walls closing in. "I'm a civilian medic. I don't want political status or court positions. I help injured people in conflict zones. That's what I do. I can't. You can and you have, Kael'sera interrupted, but her tone was gentle rather than commanding. I understand this is not what you intended. I understand you were simply doing your job with the compassion and skill that apparently define your character. But intention does not negate consequence. The Kalteva is formed, recognized by witness and circumstance. She approached Marcus, moving carefully. But I will not compel you through force. The Kalteva requires your acceptance to be complete. You can refuse, renounce the bond, return to your previous life. I will ensure you face no legal consequences for that choice. And what happens to you if I refuse? Marcus asked. Nothing immediately, Kael'sera said. I return to my duties, to ruling my empire, to the endless conflicts and responsibilities that define sovereign existence. The bond simply remains incomplete, acknowledged by law but not activated by mutual acceptance. But, Marcus prompted, hearing the unspoken continuation. But I would lose something I did not know I was missing until this week, Kael'sera admitted. And Marcus saw vulnerability in her expression that he'd only glimpsed during her most painful treatment moments. For 6 days, you treated me as Sira rather than as Empress Kael'sera. You showed me compassion without calculation, helped me without seeking advantage, spoke to me as one person to another rather than as subject to sovereign. She met his eyes directly. For 6 days, I experienced what it means to be cared for as a person rather than valued for my power. I have ruled for 2 centuries, Marcus. 200 years of command, conquest, political maneuvering, and the isolation that comes from being the most powerful individual in the empire. And in those 2 centuries, no one has treated me with the simple human kindness you showed without even knowing who I was. I'm sorry, Marcus said. I know this creates complications you weren't looking for. Do not apologize for being who you are, Kael'sera said. Your compassion, your refusal to treat me differently based on status or power, your focus on my well-being rather than my political value, these are rare qualities. I am asking you to accept the Kalteva not because law compels it, but because I want someone in my court who sees me as Sira rather than as the Empress. I want your counsel, your perspective, your stubborn insistence on treating me like a person who happens to rule an empire rather than like an empire that happens to have a person at its center. Marcus looked at this woman, this Empress, who'd shown him vulnerability and trust during her recovery, who was now asking him to formalize a bond he'd never intended to create but couldn't quite bring himself to refuse. If I accept, Marcus said slowly, what exactly does that mean for my life? Do I have to live at your court full-time, give up my medical work, become some kind of ceremonial advisor? You maintain your autonomy, Kael'sera said. The Kalteva recognizes you as my guardian, but it does not require you to abandon your life's work. You can continue your medical practice, though I would request you base yourself within reasonable distance of imperial space so you can respond if I genuinely need you. You would attend court when summoned for matters of significance, provide counsel when requested, and accept protection as member of my inner circle. So I'd be splitting time between my medical work and imperial duties, Marcus summarized. Yes, Kael'sera confirmed. It would complicate your life significantly, but it would also provide resources and access that could enhance your medical work, imperial technology and supplies, protection when working in dangerous zones, influence to reach conflict areas that civilian contractors normally cannot access safely. She paused. I am asking you to accept significant obligation, but I am also offering genuine partnership with someone who will value your counsel and perspective beyond what protocol requires. I am asking for your help, not just as guardian, but as friend who sees me as Sira rather than as the warrior Empress. Marcus thought about his life, 8 years of traveling between conflict zones, helping injured people, always moving, always alone except for brief professional relationships with other medical personnel. It was meaningful work, but it was also isolating in ways he'd been trying not to acknowledge. And Kael'sera was offering something different: connection, purpose beyond just his medical skills, a role that would let him continue his work while also being part of something larger. "I have conditions," Marcus said. "Name them," Kael'sera said. "First, I maintain my medical practice. I'm not giving up helping injured people to become a full-time court advisor. That work matters to me." "Agreed," Kael'sera said immediately. "Second, when you're not in immediate danger and I'm not actually needed at court, I want autonomy. I'll come when summoned for important matters, but I'm not hovering around the palace waiting for you to need me." "Agreed," Kael'sera said. "Third, you continue letting me treat you like a person rather than like an untouchable sovereign. The Sira I met in the wreckage, the one who talked philosophy and asked questions and showed vulnerability. I need to know that's who I'm bonding to, not just the imperial mask." Kael'sera's expression shifted to something that might have been relief. "Agreed. In private, I remain Sira. The Empress is for public consumption and political necessity. With you, I can be myself." "Then I accept," Marcus said. "The Kalteva, the guardian bond, whatever it's called. I'll be your sworn guardian, attend your court when needed, and generally try not to embarrass you with my complete ignorance of imperial protocol." "You could never embarrass me," Kael'sera said softly. "You who found me in wreckage and chose to help without knowing if I was worth saving. You who treated me with kindness when you could have left me to die or sold knowledge of my survival to my enemies. Your presence in my court will be honor, not embarrassment." The formal acceptance ceremony was conducted right there in Marcus's small medical shuttle, with Elder Velcrin officiating and the assembled Imperial Guard serving as witnesses. Marcus spoke vows in Velcari he'd learned phonetically, promising to guard the Empress's life, to provide counsel honestly, to place her well-being above his own interests. Kael'sera spoke her own vows, acknowledging his guardianship, promising to value his counsel, to protect him as he protected her. It was over in minutes, but Marcus felt the weight of what he'd accepted settling on his shoulders. He was now officially, legally, and irrevocably bound to the most powerful warrior in the Velcari Empire. His simple act of battlefield medicine had just reshaped his